John had been looking forward to a quiet night. After a long day of classes and part-time work at the local bookstore, all he wanted was a sandwich, a soft chair, and a few hours of mindless TV. His apartment was small, just enough for him and the occasional visitor, but it felt like home. He kicked off his shoes at the door, stretched his arms, and let out a sigh of relief. Finally, some peace, he muttered to himself, sliding the refrigerator door open. The hum of the fridge and the soft tapping of rain on the window made the apartment feel cozy. He pulled out a loaf of bread, some cheese, and a jar of mustard. He had been craving a simple sandwich all day, nothing fancy. As John started preparing his meal, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. He froze, sandwich in hand, and slowly turned toward the living room. At first he thought he was imagining it, but then he saw it. A tall figure standing silently near the couch, partially hidden in shadow. Hi, John said cautiously, trying to keep his voice calm. What are you? The figure didn't answer verbally. It tilted its head slightly as if studying him. Its skin shimmered faintly, a soft silver-blue glow that seemed almost liquid. Its eyes were large, dark, and reflective, like polished onyx, but they radiated intelligence and calm. The being raised a hand and pointed toward the apartment door. John's heart raced. Wait, are you my roommate? He frowned. He had no recollection of agreeing to a new roommate. Not only that, but he certainly hadn't expected someone like this. The alien, or whatever it was, moved gracefully, almost floating across the floor. It gestured toward the living room, then to a small holographic projection that appeared above the coffee table. The image showed John's neighborhood streets, bathed in dim streetlight, with strange, dark shapes moving silently between the buildings. John blinked. Okay, that's creepy. He swallowed hard. What is going on? The figure tilted its head again and extended a thin, elegant limb toward him. The motion was gentle, not threatening. John understood instinctively that it wanted him to stay put. But he shook his head. I can't just... I don't even know you. I'm not staying inside because some glowing... whatever those things are. The alien made a sound, a low hum that vibrated faintly through the floor. The holographic images shifted. The shapes outside became clearer, more defined, almost like shadows with minds of their own. John's stomach dropped. For the first time, he wondered if staying inside wasn't a joke. What are those things? He asked, his voice trembling. The alien's eyes glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed. It seemed to understand his fear. Slowly, it moved closer, placing a hand gently on the edge of the table. The holographic images began to animate, showing the shapes moving through the streets with purpose. John could see them slipping between alleyways, merging and separating, almost like they were alive in ways humans couldn't fully understand. John stepped back, bumping into the refrigerator. He leaned against it, trying to steady his racing heart. Okay, I get it. You want me to stay inside, but why? How do you even know about these things? The alien's hum changed tone, almost like it was laughing softly. Or maybe it was trying to comfort him. It pointed toward John, then at the hologram again, repeating the motion slowly. John realized that the being was showing him the situation, helping him understand without words. He sank into the couch, finally letting the reality settle in. The night that had begun as ordinary was now anything but. He glanced at the alien, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor, its hands moving lightly through the air, adjusting the holographic images. There was a rhythm to its movements, precise and careful, almost like a dance. John couldn't help but feel a mixture of awe and fear. This is insane, he whispered. I thought I knew the world. I thought I knew what was normal. The alien tilted its head again. Its glowing eyes softened. It extended its hand toward John, not in threat but in invitation. John hesitated, then took it. The contact was strange, warm, tingling, and reassuring all at once. The alien's touch made the fear in his chest ease slightly. He looked back at the hologram. The shadows were still out there, silent and patient. John understood then that the alien had been right from the start. This wasn't just a precaution, it was a matter of safety. He sank further into the couch, feeling a strange trust growing between him and his unusual roommate. "All right," he said finally. "I'll stay. But you have to explain everything. No secrets. I need to know what we're dealing with." The alien hummed again and projected a series of images. The shapes outside were not random. They moved, with intelligence, hunting in patterns that humans couldn't easily predict. They were drawn to movement and light, yet they seemed indifferent to the buildings and streets. The alien's hologram suggested strategies for staying hidden, showing how the apartment's interior could be a safe zone if John followed the instructions carefully. John watched every detail, trying to absorb as much as he could. Despite the fear, a spark of fascination grew inside him. He had always loved puzzles and mysteries, and now he was living inside one. A puzzle that could be dangerous, but thrilling. Hours passed slowly. The alien worked silently, checking the holographic images and adjusting their protective measures. John tried to keep his mind occupied, asking questions in broken sentences, pointing at the images, and hoping the alien could understand him. In return, it responded patiently, its gestures calm and deliberate. By midnight, the city outside had grown quiet. The shapes were still there, but they seemed to pause, watching. John's initial panic had faded into cautious alertness. He glanced at the alien, finally understanding something important. This being was not just powerful. It was careful, intelligent, and protective. John took a deep breath and leaned back. "I guess I'm stuck here for the night, but thank you, I think." The alien's eyes glimmered faintly, almost like it was smiling. It returned to adjusting the holographic images, its movements fluid and purposeful. For the first time, John felt a strange comfort. Despite the unknown, he wasn't alone. He had a roommate different from anyone else, yes, but one who clearly cared about keeping him safe. He closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the low hums of the alien's presence and the distant sound of the city at night. What he thought would be just another ordinary evening had transformed into something extraordinary. And John, for all his fear, couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. This night was only beginning, and already he sensed that his life, and the world he thought he knew, was about to change forever. The apartment felt strangely quiet now, but John couldn't shake the feeling that something outside was watching. He paced slowly, his eyes flicking toward the windows. The city streets, usually familiar, now looked alien under the dim glow of streetlights. Shadows moved in ways that made his stomach tighten. He wanted to leave, to step outside and see for himself, but every instinct told him it was dangerous. Lyran, his alien roommate, had been silent for a while, but its posture was alert. Its large dark eyes scanned the room, and its hands moved with precision over a small, hovering control panel. A soft hum filled the apartment, vibrating through the floor. John realized that Lyran was doing something important, but he had no idea what. Are the doors locked?" John asked nervously. He walked over and tried the front door. It wouldn't budge. He jiggled it, rattled the handle, even pressed the lock button on his phone. Nothing. The door stayed firmly closed. Lyran moved toward him, tilting its head. Then, with a slow gesture, it pointed to all the windows in the apartment. One by one, John tried them. They, too, refused to open. Panic began to rise inside him. What's happening?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Why can't I leave?" Lyran approached the nearest window and waved its hand in a circular motion. Light shimmered along the glass, and John saw something moving outside, shadowy figures hovering just beyond the reach of the streetlights. They shifted silently, almost like smoke, and their movements were deliberate. John's heart thumped painfully. They're out there," he whispered. What are they?" Lyran tilted its head and let out a low hum, pointing again at the holographic images hovering above the coffee table. The hologram showed the city from above, dark and still, with black shapes moving like living shadows. John squinted at the display, trying to understand. The shapes weren't random. They moved in patterns, circling streets, pausing near buildings, and then continuing. It was as if they were searching for something. John swallowed hard. So, we can't go outside. He stopped, unsure how to finish the sentence. Lyran responded by extending both hands, palms up, and a soft, glowing shield appeared around the apartment. The walls seemed to hum, and a faint light shimmered around the edges of the room. John felt a strange sense of safety, even though he knew the creatures outside were still dangerous. He sank onto the couch, his mind racing. Okay. I get it now. We're trapped. But why me? Why here? Why tonight? Lyran shifted slightly, then projected more images in the air. They were clearer this time. Figures moving silently, their shapes shifting like shadows on water. John realized these creatures were intelligent. They weren't just animals or monsters. They were organized, careful, and patient. He shivered. They can't see us? Lyran nodded, or at least John thought it did. The glowing Diarrhea. The night had passed, but John did not feel relief. He sat on the couch, still tense, watching the first light of dawn seep through the blinds. The city outside looked peaceful, quiet as usual. Yet he knew better now. What he had seen last night, the shadowy shapes moving with purpose, was very real. And even with Lyran's protection, he could not ignore the danger. Lyran hovered near the holographic display, scanning the city's streets with quiet precision. Its dark eyes glimmered in the soft morning light, reflecting concentration and careful calculation. John approached cautiously. They're still out there, aren't they? He asked. Lyran tilted its head. Its hands moved over the hologram, highlighting certain streets and intersections. The shapes had retreated slightly, but their patterns were still clear. They moved in organized ways, almost like they were hunting for something or someone. John shivered at the thought. I can't believe this, John muttered. They're not just animals, right? They think. Lyran's eyes met his. It made a low hum, and then projected an image of one of the shadow creatures up close. Its body shimmered like smoke, and it seemed to have intelligence in the way it moved. John studied it, fascinated and terrified. The creature paused, lifted a shape that resembled a limb, and then melted back into darkness. They're smart, John whispered. Much smarter than anything I've ever seen. Lyran nodded, or at least John assumed it did. The alien's eyes glimmered, softening as if acknowledging John's realization. It gestured toward the apartment again, emphasizing the importance of staying inside and observing. John understood that the creatures were dangerous, but also that they were predictable if one could understand their patterns. John's mind raced. He had to do something. He couldn't just sit and wait all day. Lyran, I want to help. Tell me what I can do. I'm not helpless. The alien seemed to consider this. Its hands moved over the hologram, highlighting weak points in the building's energy shield. John saw what looked like small gaps or vulnerabilities, areas the creatures might exploit if they were clever enough. Lyran's gestures suggested that John's human intuition could fill those gaps. John felt a surge of pride. Even though he was ordinary, inexperienced, and scared, he could still contribute. He began pointing out patterns he noticed in the holographic display, the way the shadows moved near certain streets, the times they paused, the shapes of their formations. Lyran adjusted the shield according to his suggestions, and John felt a strange satisfaction. See, he said quietly. We're working together. We can do this. Lyran's eyes glimmered brighter. It projected another layer of holographic images, showing how the creatures reacted to certain energy fields. John studied them carefully. He noticed that the creatures avoided areas that pulsed with a steady, gentle light, but moved confidently through areas where light flickered or shifted. He pointed this out to Lyran, who adjusted the shield accordingly. Hours passed. John and Lyran worked in silence, occasionally exchanging gestures and holographic signals. John's fear gradually transformed into focus. He realized that humans had unique strengths: creativity, adaptability, and quick thinking. These were qualities even Lyran admired. He felt a surge of confidence, but the peace did not last. Around midday, the shadows began to move closer again. They hovered near the apartment's walls. shifting as if sensing the energy shield. John's heart raced. They're testing us, he said. They're figuring out what we're doing. Lyran's hands moved quickly over the hologram, reinforcing the shield and creating new energy patterns. The alien's movements were precise and controlled, a silent dance of protection and calculation. John watched in awe. Despite the danger, there was a strange beauty in Lyran's work. John realized he needed to act. He began improvising small distractions using household items, mirrors to reflect light, pieces of metal to create gentle noise, and even a simple fan to shift the shadows in subtle ways. Lyran observed his efforts closely, adjusting the shield to accommodate John's actions. It was a collaboration unlike anything John had ever experienced. "You're learning fast," Lyran seemed to say with its eyes. John smiled, feeling proud. Even in the face of danger, humans could adapt, think creatively, and contribute. The shadows tested the apartment's defenses for hours. They moved like water flowing around corners, pausing and retreating. John could see that they were intelligent and patient. They did not attack recklessly, they observed, learned, and waited. But thanks to Lyran and his own contributions, the apartment remained secure. As night approached again, John felt exhaustion settle in. His muscles ached, his mind was tired, but he also felt a growing sense of accomplishment. The creatures outside were dangerous, yes, but humans could rise to challenges in ways the shadows could not predict. He had learned patterns, contributed strategies, and begun to understand the rhythm of the creatures' movements. Lyran noticed his fatigue. It projected a small soft light toward John, guiding him to a comfortable spot near the couch. John sat down, leaning back, and let out a long breath. He looked at the alien, feeling gratitude and respect. "Thanks," he said quietly. I don't know how I could do this without you." Lyran's eyes glimmered softly, almost like a gentle nod. It continued to monitor the shadows, but its posture was less tense now. John realized that his participation mattered, that humans were not helpless even against alien threats. He felt a new sense of confidence in his own abilities. Hours passed slowly, the apartment remaining a safe haven amidst the city's dangers. John noticed the creatures' movements becoming more predictable. They paused at certain streets, avoided certain energy patterns, and occasionally retreated entirely. He began noting these patterns, predicting their next moves. "This is incredible," John whispered to himself. I'm actually helping." "I can do this," Lyran's gestures encouraged him. It seemed to acknowledge that human intuition was as valuable as alien technology. John felt a deep sense of pride. Humans may not have advanced energy shields or holographic maps, but their creativity, observation, and quick thinking made them powerful in unexpected ways. By midnight, the apartment was quiet again. The shadows had withdrawn for now. John and Lyran rested near the hologram, observing the city from their safe space. John's mind was filled with the lessons of the day: patience, trust, observation, and the surprising strength of human creativity. This isn't just about survival," he whispered. "It's about understanding, learning, and working together. Humans, we're stronger than I thought." Lyran's eyes glimmered with what John interpreted as approval. The alien had taught him much already, but John knew there was still more to learn. The city outside was still dangerous, the shadows still intelligent, and the night ahead would test them again. But John felt ready. He had seen his own human ingenuity in action. He had worked with Lyran, contributed strategies, and held his fear in check. He understood now that survival wasn't just about shielding or strength. It was about intelligence, creativity, and courage. As the first hints of dawn approached again, John leaned back, feeling a sense of calm determination. The shadows would return, but he and Lyran would be ready. Together they were a team, combining human intuition and alien technology to face the unknown. For the first time since the night began, John felt a spark of excitement. The dangers outside were real, yes, but he was no longer just a frightened human. He was a participant, a thinker, a partner. And he knew that whatever came next, humans had a unique strength that even the most advanced shadows could not predict. The city outside remained quiet, yet John could feel the tension lingering in the air. Shadows, the strange, intelligent creatures, were still out there, moving silently in patterns that made the streets seem alive in a threatening way. But today John felt different. He no longer felt powerless or overwhelmed. He had learned from last night, and he was ready to contribute in ways that could truly matter. Lyran hovered near the holographic display, its glowing eyes scanning the map of the city. The shield around the apartment flickered softly, maintaining a protective barrier. John observed it carefully, noticing small adjustments Lyran was making in response to the movements of the shadows outside. He understood that the alien's technology was brilliant, but it needed guidance, strategy, and sometimes creativity. That was where humans could shine. John's mind raced. He began to think about the materials around the apartment, ordinary items that could be turned into tools, signals, or distractions. Maybe mirrors, he muttered, pointing to the small decorative mirrors on the walls. We can reflect light. The shadows seem to react to light. Maybe we can guide them. Lyran tilted its head as if acknowledging the idea. It gestured for John to move closer to the holographic map. Together, they examined the creature's patterns, predicting where they might go next. John suggested moving furniture in certain ways to create barriers, and the alien adjusted the energy shield to complement his plan. For the first time, John realized something important. Humans had creativity. They could see patterns, think outside the box, and improvise solutions using ordinary things. This was something even Lyran's advanced intelligence seemed to rely on. He felt a spark of pride, mixed with excitement. Okay, John said, grabbing a small flashlight and a few reflective objects. We can try this. If I reflect the light, ask the eye. The night had returned, darker and more silent than before. John and Lyran were prepared this time. But neither of them underestimated the shadows outside. The creatures had grown bolder with each passing hour, their movements more deliberate, almost like they were testing the boundaries of the apartment's defenses. John sat near the holographic display, watching the shadows shift through the city streets. His heart raced, but his mind was focused. He had learned from the past nights. Observation, creativity, and calm thinking were just as important as any shield. Lyran hovered beside him, its glowing eyes scanning the creatures, adjusting the energy field surrounding the apartment. Together they were a team, combining human ingenuity and alien technology in perfect balance. Suddenly, the shadows approached the apartment walls with unusual speed. John's pulse quickened. They're attacking, or testing. More aggressively, he whispered. Lyran's eyes glimmered with urgency, and the alien gestured for John to prepare the tools they had used before. Mirrors, light reflections, and sound distractions. John moved quickly, setting up reflective surfaces at strategic angles. He aimed the flashlight beams to guide the shadows away from weak points in the energy shield. The shadows hesitated, confused by the moving lights, but then shifted, testing another area. John adjusted the mirrors, creating new patterns of light, while Lyran reinforced the shield in real time. The creatures advanced, circling the apartment in coordinated patterns. John noticed that their movements were no longer random. They had learned, adapting to the human interventions from the previous nights. He realized that they needed something unpredictable, something that no pattern or calculation could anticipate. Lyran, he said, we need to do something. Clever. Something they won't expect. The alien paused, tilting its head, and projected a series of holographic simulations. John studied the images carefully. He saw a pattern forming. If he could create multiple points of light moving unpredictably, the shadows would follow the distractions rather than focusing on the apartment itself. John's mind raced. He grabbed a small fan, a metal tray, and the flashlight. He aimed the light at the fan, which reflected the beam across the walls. He moved the tray to create new angles, producing a series of shifting reflections that danced across the floor and walls. The shadows paused, then began to follow the moving lights, clearly confused by the sudden and unexpected patterns. Yes, it's working, John whispered, excitement mixing with tension. The shadows hesitated, unable to predict the movements. Lyran adjusted the shield, strengthening areas where the creatures had tried to approach. Together, their improvisation and technology created a barrier that was both physical and psychological. But the creatures were clever. They regrouped, changing their approach, moving in tighter formations. John noticed one particularly large shadow heading toward a weak section of the shield. His pulse quickened. Lyran now, he shouted. Lyran moved instantly, creating a stronger energy field around the vulnerable point. John redirected the light reflections to draw the large shadow away. The creature hesitated, twisted in midair, and then shifted its path. John exhaled slowly, feeling a surge of pride. They were holding the line, but he knew this was only temporary. The shadows continued their assault, moving in waves. John kept his focus, adjusting mirrors, redirecting beams, and using sound to guide their movements. He realized that human creativity was unpredictable in a way that the creatures could not fully understand. Each improvisation kept them safe. Each quick adjustment gave Lyran time to reinforce the shield. Hours passed in a tense rhythm. John's muscles ached. His hands trembled from holding the flashlight, but he refused to give in to fatigue. He had discovered something important. Humans could combine observation, quick thinking, and courage to affect outcomes in ways even the most advanced technology relied upon. The shadows made one final push. They converged near the apartment walls, moving with remarkable coordination. John's heart pounded as he glanced at the holographic display. "Lyran, we can't let them break through now." The alien's glowing eyes met his, and in that moment, John felt a deep connection. They were not alone in this fight, they were partners. Lyran projected a series of containment fields just outside the apartment, forming invisible barriers to trap the shadows temporarily. John directed the lights to lure them into these zones. The largest shadow hesitated, confused by the sudden barriers and moving lights. John noticed an opening and quickly angled the mirrors to reflect light directly toward it. The creature twisted and drifted into the containment field. One by one, the other shadows followed, guided by the unpredictable patterns John created and contained by Lyran's technology. John slumped onto the couch, exhausted but triumphant. "We did it," he whispered. The shadows outside were contained for the moment, retreating into the streets beyond the apartment. The city felt quiet again, almost peaceful, though John knew it was only temporary. Lyran floated near the holographic map, its eyes glowing softly. John watched the alien for a long moment, feeling admiration and respect. The creature's technology had been crucial, but without human creativity and intuition, the shadows might have succeeded. They had worked together, each complementing the other's strengths. For the first time, John realized the full meaning of partnership. Humans were capable of thinking quickly, adapting and acting in ways that even advanced aliens needed. Lyran's experience and technology were powerful, but human ingenuity had turned the tide. He felt a spark of pride he had never known before, a deep satisfaction that came from realizing his courage and creativity had mattered. The night dragged on, but the immediate threat had passed. John and Lyran remained vigilant, monitoring the streets through the holographic map. The shadows had retreated, but they would likely return. John's mind, however, was no longer filled with fear alone. He had discovered the power of collaboration, the value of thinking differently, and the strength of human creativity. He glanced at Lyran, who made a low hum, almost like a soft acknowledgement. John understood it perfectly. They had survived together, using both alien technology and human intuition to overcome an impossible challenge. As dawn approached again, the apartment remained secure. John leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced the unknown, contributed ideas, and proven that humans could rise to challenges that even advanced aliens respected. The creatures outside may have been intelligent, patient, and dangerous, but human ingenuity had been unpredictable, and that had made all the difference. For the first time since the night began, John smiled. He felt a deep sense of confidence and hope. The shadows might return and the nights ahead would still be dangerous. But he had learned that humans had unique strengths, curiosity, courage, creativity, and quick thinking that could change the outcome of even the most challenging situations. Lyran's glowing eyes met his one last time before the first sunlight hit the city streets. In that moment, John understood the bond that had formed between them, a bond of trust, respect, and partnership. He was no longer just a human living with an alien. He was a teammate, a contributor, and a survivor. This is only the beginning," he whispered, "but we can handle it. Together." The shadows outside might still be out there learning and waiting, but John no longer felt powerless. He had discovered his own strength, and with Lyran by his side, he knew they could face whatever came next. The night had tested them, but it had also revealed the extraordinary potential of human ingenuity. And as the sun rose over the quiet city, John felt a spark of pride and anticipation. The battles ahead would be challenging, but he knew one thing for certain. Humans had a way of shining in the darkest moments, and that light could never be underestimated. The first light of morning touched the city, painting the streets in soft gold and orange. John sat on the couch exhausted but alert. The shadows, the strange, intelligent creatures that had haunted the city for nights, were quiet for now. Their movements had slowed and the air seemed calmer. John knew that the night's struggle had ended, but he also knew that vigilance was still necessary. Lyran floated near the holographic display, its glowing eyes scanning the streets. The energy shield around the apartment shimmered faintly, a protective barrier that ensured they were safe. John watched the alien, understanding now just how much effort had gone into keeping them secure. He felt a deep sense of respect for this being. Its intelligence, precision, and patience were beyond anything humans could normally imagine. But John also understood something new about himself. Humans, even ordinary ones like him, had strengths that could change outcomes. Creativity, intuition, courage, these were qualities that Lyran had relied upon as much as its own advanced technology. John had faced fear and danger and had discovered that humans could rise to challenges in ways that mattered. He looked around the apartment, seeing the ordinary objects that had been turned into tools of survival: mirrors, lights, and even a simple fan. These had all played a role in guiding the shadows and keeping them at bay. John smiled faintly. "I never thought my imagination could save us," he whispered to himself. Lyran's eyes glimmered in response, as if acknowledging his thoughts. The alien had not spoken in words, but its gestures, glows, and careful attention communicated understanding. A